position, and applications were posted and accepted through March 3rd, 2025. Town received 4 applications for 1 vacancy. Ron Mitchell, who has withdrawn his application, Jason Suss, Kyle Busey, and John Thompson. Their applications are included as part of the packet this evening, and I see that they're all here this evening. So we thought we would do as we normally do, where we can invite each person up and you can go around and ask questions if that's what you've done in the past, and it kind of sounds like that's what you were thinking for tonight, Andrew. Okay. All right. So Jason Suss. Welcome.
Evening.
You can start out by speaking about why you want to be on the board if you want, and then the board members will kind of go around and just ask questions.
Sure, thanks. Do I have to hold this down to talk? No.
Just make sure it's green. Yep.
Okay. Jason Suss. We have been residents of the Nederland area. We live in the library district. We're actually the first property right outside of town. You head up 119 towards Boulder. Jack and I have lived there now 13 years. I have recently joined Jackie. She's been working at the downtown Remax, Great Street Circle, for about 10 years now. I have recently joined her as a agent. Just was licensed this last month. We feel very invested in town and invested in the capabilities that town has, in particular as that relates to the real estate business. And we think that a thriving town with jobs and opportunity and services is very important to the people that we serve in terms of people in and out of the area. We find a combination of needs when we run across them. And we think that continued development of town is very important to being able to service overall. We're also property owners. We own the Remax building, 50% of it at 286 North Bridge Street. And when this opportunity came up, I thought that it was an interesting opportunity to get involved, being that we're involved in business locally. But because we reside outside of town, we can't really involve ourselves directly in the political positions for the town and otherwise.
Thank you for your application and interest and taking the time to come down to your.
Sure.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the.
It's same for me. Thank you for application, interest, and sharing your thoughts on why you want to be on the NDDA. Appreciate it.
Good. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for applying. I don't have any questions at this moment. Thanks.
Awesome.
I again want to thank you for applying, and my question would be, we have there's committees from time to time that the NDDA has, be it public art or the performance space, or if what are some things, or if you could make up a committee, or kind of get behind something, can you give us an example of some things that you might
Sure.
get behind?
My background is primarily fullness in tech and in marketing. And so, although I just became licensed as a real estate agent this year, I have been working in the background with Jackie, assisting her in both digital and print marketing over the years. You may have seen some of her stuff around, say, Mountaineer or whatnot. I've also done that in the digital realm, and I think I added my resume to that application. I'm in that kind of cloud architecture, technology planning, and execution. I would say from my background, it's mostly about finding the practical and executing. I get approached by most of the clients that I've had in the past have been like VC-backed ventures. They have big ideas. They want to create the biggest thing that they can. My job is always to figure out how to actually execute. What is the core idea that we need to accomplish? How do we pay for it? Do we have the funds? What are the practicalities of actually execution. I think that that background could assist in some of the goals of the NDDA, in terms of just finding what we can do to execute. Because Jackie and I have been around long enough to see that the pace of change can be slow in it. Anything that I can do to contribute to assist in development and furtherance of that, is better. Sure,
Thanks for being here, Jason.
absolutely.
What is your favorite NDDA project that we have been currently working on?
I think that the signage, as well as the multimodal piece in terms of walkability of town, are both really important. I hike all the time. I am crossing 119 and going in and out of town and all through the woods. Just having safer and better access for the population to do the same, I think is big. I was also watched the sidewalk projects over time. And I think that was also an important contribution, although it was kind of a bumpy road to get to the sidewalks that we are starting to have now. But, sure.
Everett, do you have a question?
Tanya's here as well.
No, not really. Nothing that hasn't been asked. Pretty much questions I have were in line with what's already been asked.
Thank you. Trustee Corvalon?
I just was curious if you feel like you can commit to the meetings, and working with committees to actually accomplish anything. It feels like what we really need is somebody who has some time, to devote. Most people have really great intentions, myself included, but we just don't have the time to really put into the NDDA what it needs. So how's your time?
I'd say I have a fair amount of availability. We live and work locally, which puts us in direct access to town with the ability to schedule. Plus, we work 7 days a week, so we spread out our time quite a bit too. So I don't believe that I would be challenged there.
That's good.
Scott, I have a question as well.
Jason, something occurs to me. So you've been licensed for a month, right?
Yes.
But you're going to be filling the role of, you mentioned that your role as an agent. Are you also going to be co-owning or running the business?
We work as independent contractors for Remax Alliance, who are the lessee at our building at 286 North Bridge Street. So I will be working for them with Jackie on her real estate team. I'm kind of overflow for her. She's extremely busy, has been doing this a long time, has a stature and is known in that space. So I'm really just trying to pitch in with her as well to just help take some of the load off.
Sure. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Kyle QC is our next applicant.
Hello, how's it going? Kyle?
Go hit the green.
There
you go.
Nice. Coming on 19 years in Netherlands. I've worked in many different industries up here, mostly service style industries, whether it's a hydroponic grocery store for 11 years or a bartender, or my current venture, which is the barbecue and brewery on First Street, UC Brews. We've been there 5.5 years now. I feel like I've seen a lot of different aspects of this town in the time that I've been up here, not only working behind the scenes, but seeing how things I was on the sustainable SAP board when I first got up here, about 10, 12 years ago now, something like that, for about 1.5 years. Definitely interested in the sustainability part as far as our town goes and how we grow. Also just seeing tourism and people and changes that are happening around us. And sometimes Netherlands decides to change with it, and sometimes we fight against it. And, I kind of see there's got to be a happy medium of us deciding to, move forward in a way that's sustainable for our town, but also going to help shepherd the good name of Netherlands and have people come up here and spend time and money and buy property and all that fun stuff, and still do it in a way that helps the town instead of feeling overrun sometimes. So like to be on the board just because not only I've been in business a long time around here, I feel like I have a pretty good eye on what's happening as far as business levels and tourism and government, and just kind of keeping my eye on all that. And I think I'd have a good opinion to be able to offer some alternatives.
He's got all.
And again, just thank you for your interest and thank you for being here. And I appreciate you taking the time to be here and sharing kind of a comprehensive application. So thank you.
Scott?
I think we met. You've shown up at least one or two of the discussions between the town and the NDDA, and I want to not just thank you for showing up here and putting in your application, but also for showing interest for those meetings and to try and participate in the conversation. And I don't really have any questions. I have a good sense of who you are, what you do, and I appreciate the fact that you're right in the trenches of what downtown Nederland is all about. Thank you for doing what you do.
Appreciate this.
Thank you for application and coming tonight. I'm gonna ask kind of the same question. Are there certain things, projects or committees or, areas that you feel really passionate about that you'd like to see the DDA involved in that it isn't now, or if it is now, but not quite the way you want? Are there, what?
Yeah, I know one of the things I mentioned that one of the main meetings Scott was referring to is I feel we could do a much better job of helping our businesses in town with resources, whether it's business development resources, grants, helping with financing, helping just with signage, things like that. Business development, I'm a musician at heart. I've been playing saxophone since I was 3. I'd love to see, I really appreciate what the Friday night music series happened last year. I'd love to see that expand into other things. I remember back 18 years ago when you would leave one bar and go into another and it was packed and there was music. You go into another, there's packed, there's music on the street, there's music here, there's music there, and just don't see that anymore. A lot of people miss that and talk about it. Not saying that's where we need to go, but I appreciate the direction of having more of an arts and entertainment district as far as not only First Street, but other areas in town that have had it previously and seem like pretty good options to continue to have that. As far as things I appreciate the DDD addressing would be parking, especially recently. The Big Springs was a big development. Going back to the sustainability part, my new expansion is the first solar integrated building in Colorado where the solar panels are the roof instead of being on top of the roof. So I'm very passionate about renewable energy and trying to figure out how we can make that more of a thing. Having a renewable backup generator for all the business in town would be amazing when Excel decides to shut off our power. Because that hurts when it's 2 to 3 days at a time and there's literally nothing you can do without spending $50,000 on a generator. So if we can figure out something to do with that, that would be great. And yeah, I'm here. I'm available for meetings. I do like things that are run efficiently, and I've seen both sides efficiently and non-efficiently from the last 20 years of being up here. Just excited to try to help that efficiency and kind of move forward in a way that works for everybody.
Thank you for applying. Aside from showing up to the meetings, do you have an estimate of how much time you could give for a committee each month?
As much as needed, yes. I think, once again, with efficiency and, if we have clear strategic goals, It doesn't have to be 10 hours. We could get the same amount done in 2 hours. And as long as the whole team is on that page, I'm not interested in going around in circles for hours and hours and hours. I am interested in getting things done and doing it in a way that benefits everybody and benefits everybody's time. So as much as needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Everett, do you have any questions?
No, I've talked to Kyle actually recently, and I appreciate you applying, and I really kind of dig the energy you bring. So I don't really have any questions. I'm kind of listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Trustee Borgelon?
I think I'll ask the same question about time commitment, because I mean, you're a super busy person. I mean, like everyone. But, you know, the meetings are once a month and they come up quick. And plus, there's also, you know, ideally you join some committees and help progress some of those great ideas you have. I'd love to see the town generator come up and out, or some kind of microgrid is what has been in the talks, but there's no action towards that. So do you think you have some extra time to devote to manifesting these great ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. As mentioned, you know, if we can do things in a constructive way, then I have the time that is needed for sure. So
Awesome.
I have 35 I call them restaurant babies, but they're employees. Luckily, a lot of them are really getting good at what they do now, so I don't necessarily have to be there, even though I am there a lot. But, you know, this would be something that I would put time towards for sure.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. John Thompson? Ah,
You know I'd be speaking. So I read this down. I'm John Thompson, resident for 13 years. I lived here like 26 years ago for a year. I worked at Eldora as a snowmaker and in the retail department. I own the Mountain Man store for the past 12 years. I have a very close personal relationship with town and it's working. I'm an active skier, mountain biker, hiker, camper. I've helped out with Teens Inc., the Carousel, Wild Bear, the police back when we used to have them. I've lived on the East Coast. I lived in the West Coast. I've lived in big towns and in small towns. I've owned several small businesses. I'm here to help. I just, you know, I'm kind of a clean slate. When I lived in San Francisco, I worked as a bike messenger. And for a while, I was the president of the San Francisco Bike Messenger Association, which got absolutely nothing done, but it brought us all together. So that was a good thing. But the main reason is I'm just here to see what I can do. I have a real great, through the store, I have a great relationship with every different bit of Nederland. I know everybody. I know everybody's opinion. People came in today when I told them I was coming here tonight to tell me what they were thinking, and that's going to be fun. I'm always available as long as it doesn't mess around with ski time. And yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. John, appreciate your application and coming down through.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to be here, sharing your application and questions.
Hey, John. A lot of times, this Downtown Development Authority gets approached by either businesses or people in the public with ideas. And very often the idea is more appropriate to talk to town about. Sometimes they're right on target. They belong right here in front of the DDA. And I think you have a fairly good sense for the distinction between the Downtown Development Authority and that town overall. If you had to think of just something that was a fairly high priority that you think the DDA or the town could be doing for businesses by way of the DDA, what comes to mind?
Well, I came to your last meeting, so I know about the wayfaring thing. Really, it's from a business standpoint, trying to get people to stop. People from Eldora come through here all the time. And in the last 12 years, I've seen that slowly ebb. I blame it a lot on the Icon Pass. People are only coming up because they're not going to spend $200 a day to go to a little dinky Eldora. they're going to go to someplace bigger. But when they do come up, they're very financially conscious. They go in, they go out. So something along those lines, something, whether it's just presenting the town a little more fancier, I don't know, something along those lines.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, getting people to stop, whether it be there just on the Pizza Peak Highway in general, or I mean, Eldora is definitely a big part of our, goals, I think. We can all agree on that. Are there other, kind of, in addition to getting, top dollars from, the highway, so to speak, no matter who's on it, projects or goals that you would see, wanting to, if it's not something we're doing now, are there things that, that you've been thinking about that you want to bring to the board?
And nothing that specifically that I can think of off the top of my head. Again, keeping our, the small town feel to it. Like I said, I lived in San Francisco for 15 years and I love the city and I love going down to Boulder and down to Denver. But we don't want to like copy the stuff just because it's successful down there. We need little things like the PI used to be, things that really people come in, sit down and feel really comfortable with. They don't feel like McDonald's.
Thank you for applying, John. Being as social as you are, how are your boundaries if people start arguing with you incessantly about their opinion?
It's funny, I've worked on that quite a bit at the store. Lately, I'm working, because it's really slow, I'm working pretty much open to close. I'll have 100 customers to come through. I've had interaction with, and those are the ones that always stick in my head. So I'm always trying to work out in my head what I did wrong, how I could have made it better, even if it's somebody that's abrasive that comes in. So like today, when I talked to the guy, he was adamant about, we need more festivals. We need to get this in, and try to be very agreeing with them and not meeting them head on. That's the main thing, is trying to like have empathy for those people. But yeah.
Everett, do you have any questions?
Not really. I mean, every time it gets for me to ask a question, all the questions have been asked. So, I know who John is, and I know he's been around a while. I kind of like the community sense that all the applicants have come forward with. They seem very invested in the community and very willing to want to further where we want to go as a board, as from what I've heard.
Thanks, Everett. Trustee Corvalon?
Yeah, I want to agree with what Everett was saying about that all the applicants are amazing. They have great. Sorry, I got people in the house. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the question before the board tonight is, which of the applicants does the NDDA want to recommend to the BOT to appoint to fill the vacancy with a term ending June 1st, 2027? And I do want to let everybody know that the Board of Trustees has the ultimate say. So I would encourage you, no matter which way it goes this evening, that you do come to the Board of Trustees meeting next week, because they will have their own questions and we would want you to continue through the process. So just before things get going, to say that. So I have potential motion if somebody's ready to recommend an applicant, and then we can go around and vote, or you can discuss however you want to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think for discussion, I do want to just honor and acknowledge that in my opinion, I wish we could have, I don't know all of you personally, but I know all of you indirectly, and I wish that we could have, so much energy, like as in everyone all at once. I know that's not the option tonight. And I also know we've got some members that can't be here tonight, and they're hoping that they can come back, but they may not. And so we might not just have one vacancy. There might be a couple of vacancies. So I think, whatever we do tonight, we'd like to probably have not only a recommendation for an appointment, but if there was also maybe a second, an alternate, and if that position became available in the next 2 to 3 weeks, if that was something that, would still be, you would consider, we would hope that would be something you would consider. So.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of process we would need to follow, but yeah, I would think just because we just opened it and did applications, if we did have a vacancy, and because we aren't sure right now, but if that does happen, because we are excited that we got some great applications, we don't want you to lose your momentum potentially, so.
Andrew, do we have vacancies coming up just on the schedule?
I'm sorry, Tanya, I couldn't quite hear what you said.
Do we have vacancies coming up just from people's terms being up?
So in June, it is time for Steve Roundtree and Danielle Kraus to resubmit should they choose. And so those, I heard from both, I think it's safe to say it now that they are interested in resubmitting their applications.
Okay, so we should probably still have the process.
Yeah, and that happens in June. So that we'll follow that process, and Macy will reach out to them in the next couple of weeks is how that typically works, because, we're a part of, it's not just a DDA board that she goes out for at that time. So we're just a part of that process annually.
Okay, great. Thanks for the explanation. Yeah, I'm also want to reiterate, everybody here anyone would be great on this board. I'm torn. I really can't make a motion because I want everybody.
So I'd like to introduce then formally the idea that we go ahead and propose a nominee and a secondary nominee, just because even between now and summertime, when positions need to turn over, it's a sizable board, and if there's any opportunity for or risk of somebody else leaving the board, I would prefer that we capitalize on all the work that's been done to get to this point right now. So I don't know if we want to introduce this as a motion before a motion. But do we need to introduce or make a motion?
That's what I wonder.
John?
What do you think?
I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I've recently been reading your bylaws.
Yep.
And I am not 100% sure this is a thing that is really explicitly allowed or not allowed. And I think,
Yeah,
do you have a thought about that, or?
Well, so in the bylaws, as you know, because we all just looked at them, it just says you make recommendations to the BOT.
We do.
And so I don't think, if we just stick by that, doing this process, they always want to know how many votes each person got. And so they sometimes can help with that process. So I don't,
The only
I'm
thing
open.
I would caution, and this is more just like maybe you talked about this for a minute.
Mhm.
There typically is an open application process for every vacancy.
Mhm.
That's town policy that's been established for however long that's been.
Mhm.
So that might be the discussion point here, but I think that I wouldn't feel comfortable telling you no, but the same way I think you're in a little bit of a gray area. So I think that's just a discussion for you.
So it's a gray area. We only recommend to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees has the final say. And so I would like to recommend that we recommend to the Board of Trustees a person to fill the role. And they will make the final decision, and we would also recommend a person to be alternative or alternate or backup, who would be prepared if they're willing to come into the board? Should there be another vacancy between now and middle of the summer?
Well,
So
so,
that's that would be a
But-
recommendation.
so the issue with that is, per the bylaws, we have to have an open application process in June in that. It's the timing
Yeah.
of this that kind of makes it a little bit more complicated, and that's where I think,
Let me clarify.
Okay.
So for that process in June, that open application, that happens, that
Mhm.
process happens. But for a period between now and June, it's only 3 months.
Mhm.
It's already been revealed that there's a possibility that somebody else might be leaving the board. And my only point is, it would be great to not have to do this between now and June all over again. And make people sit back and wait for a month or 2 months to come present themselves again.
The only thing is, I think what the important factor here is the amount of time elapsed. That's where you're gonna run into a difficulty, and this is a decision for you guys, that if it goes too long, it's not gonna look like a transparent process. And that would be maybe the potential argument against that, is that you wanna make sure that happens, but if it's within a window, I think there's a reasonable case to be made either way, so I think that's where the discussion might be, is how long.
Even if it's, I think maybe what I'm hearing Scott say, and, you know, understanding that there's a valid process for a reason that needs to be followed. I guess maybe it's the spirit of the thing, of a second recommendation of, you know, hey, we don't want, to go unnoticed the effort and the qualifications that are before us tonight.
Right.
You know,
And I'm in agreement with your suggestion earlier.
I couldn't tell if you were gonna think about that.
I don't want to get too far. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, trustee Corbo, I'll let you go. I was just gonna say, ultimately, this comes to the board anyway.
Mhm.
And if there's an issue, you could always interrogate with them, and then it's just,
That's fine.
yeah.
But what I know is the board won't do it if we don't recommend it, right? So.
Well, they do what they want anyway. I was just gonna say, the last big discussion about this last July, we had talked about adding 2 more board members to create more people to actually work on stuff. So that is something we could also bring up again in a future meeting as a discussion item. I think personally, I'm in favor of more people. If they're all willing to go on different committees and do different things, we could really get a lot done. But that's just, I mean, we're not gonna decide that today. I know that. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
You know, because that, we have had that discussion item almost every year, and every year it tends to be voted down to move past discussion. But, you know, we could definitely talk about that again. That's all.
any other discussion?
Something not. Yeah, there's something going on. This is what's showing me. But then over here. Back here is a different thing.
I love this system. Something just changed.
Yeah.
Do they have you?
Yep.
Can they hear?
Back.
We see if they can hear you.
Can you hear me? Everett, can you let me know if you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
I said I'd entertain a motion
So I would like to say that I appreciate all three applicants being here and I appreciate what you're willing to bring to this board. I feel like there are two applicants here whose specific businesses are a little bit more central to what the focus is of this NDDA. And so I would like to make a motion that we nominate Kyle Busey to the open spot on this board and we also go forward with a recommendation of John Thompson as an alternate or a second, should a position open up between now and the next open application period.
Second.
Scott Papich,
Yes,
Danielle Kraus,
Yes,
Steve Roundtree,
Is it possible for us to split this out into two motions? Just so that we're a little cleaner.
That's a good idea.
so Scott needs to
I just need to
rescind.
withdraw, or you just need to fill.
well, go ahead. What would you like?
I think to get us in a better position with how this is communicated to the BOT, I like what you did, but can we separate it out and do it twice? That's what I'm hoping we can do. However, we can rewind or reset to be able to.
What I would recommend is, the easiest way to start would be if you rescind the motion, and then you could just issue the new. Sequentially.
Two separate motions.
Yeah, but it's your motion, so you can get your choice.
I'll rescind the motion.
All right, thank you.
Would you like me to make another motion?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
I think this is good.
Everything I said before, I still mean it. And so I would move that we nominate Kyle Busey to the current open position on this board.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Scott Papich,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
yes,
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Andrew Dewar,
Yes.
Everett Nelson,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Make a motion that as an alternate in the event the BOT needs another recommendation between now and the next time there's board vacancies, that John is considered for the DDA.
That's a motion?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay. Scott Papich,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
yes,
Steve Roundtree,
Abstain.
Andrew Dewar,
Yes.
Everett Nelson,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you all.
And, Jason, I do want to say that hearing you talk about implementation and execution, I would like you to keep being engaged and involved because, that is important. So, appreciate you being here again.
You all.
On to the next, and I have the vice chair election in the packet again this month. Because you had indicated last month that you wanted to come back this month. So you can feel free to do that this evening, or if you want to wait until after the Board of Trustees adds a new member, you can also look at that option. So I just wanted to make sure you didn't feel like you had to, but I just wanted to keep it in our agenda so that we are staying on top of it. So I'm open to whatever feedback you all have on that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Scott Papich as the vice chair of the NDDA. If I have a second.
second,
I'll abstain from this one.
Danielle Kraus,
yes,
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Andrew Stewart,
Yes.
Everett Nielsen,
Yes.
trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
All right, congratulations, Scott. I look forward to working with you on this. And so, well, that was very efficient, everyone. Thank you.
You actually caught me while I was thinking about something else.
Your service, Scott.
All right, our next item is a discussion item on next steps. And unfortunately, Peter can't be with us this evening. He's not feeling well. And Steve Perot sent a question before the meeting about some long-term costs that I've reached out to Peter to get clarification on. So I always like to put the option, as you've asked, to move to action on there. But I think this one may be a good one to keep as discussion this month, just to make sure that next month Peter could come back and answer any questions you may have.
Peter will not be here.
Oh, that's-
His last day is April 4th.
That's
But I am pretty comfortable with the contract, is what's happening in that space, so if you have questions for me,
Yeah,
happy to answer, and I can prepare, if you'd like an aim or something for action next month, I can do that.
that's great. Sorry, thank you for jumping in on that. I did forget that Peter is moving along, but he's been really helpful with helping us figure out next steps. And he drafted this aim with me that I'm happy to go through with you. But I think we should follow up again with John because we're not under a serious time crunch. I know that there's been a lot of questions about the web and I wanted to find a path forward for us. And so here is an option. And so after meetings to discuss the needs of design with the NDDA's website, the executive director and the web consultant, working with town and Netherlands staff to rebuild the NDDA website, recommend to rebuild it with the Civic Plus platform. During the February 18th Board of Trustees meeting, the BOT approved funding for a new website for town, and we believe that the NDDA can benefit from this transition more effectively than rebuilding the website we're currently working on from the ground up, which is the current plan. The benefits that Peter's laid out here are the cost. Working with town would be a cheaper process of building a site from scratch or signing a contract with a platform like Civic Plus directly. And the project cost for town is it's the $47.58 for the website. The built-in ADA tools, this is obviously one that is really important, and that is that we'll have, as a government entity, we'll comply with all the things we need to comply with, and we're already using this to do our agenda packets, so it just kind of, it makes sense and it makes it much more seamless. There's built-in engagement tools, which is another plus that this platform comes with, such as the calendar and the newsletter that I can use with the community. And their ease of access. This proposal would have the NDDA's website as a microsite off of the Town and Netherlands Efficient site, which would make it easy for users to find. And the timeline that this would be up and running probably a lot faster than going out and finding another provider at this point, as we've been looking at some different people. While we would need to go into an agreement with town and work on that together, ultimately, it's believed that this could be a great course of action for the NDDA. And we've attached what the town of Netherlands, what John was referencing, the agreement and everything. And one of the things that I discussed with all of you as we were just talking was, the business directory and the importance of getting that in there, and that's, an easy thing for them to be able to integrate in. All right, so the questions are, how do you all feel about the DDA website being rebuilt from the ground up, or should we work in conjunction with the town of Netherlands to streamline things? That's kind of the direction, what I want us to be really thinking about, and go around and get some feedback.
I just want to speak for myself, from my memory, when we carved out a rather gratuitous budget for the website, that it was done through, at least my paradigm was that this should really be in partnership with town. And I know there was a lot of blowback of like, who would ever spend $25,000 on a website? And that wasn't this, not to get into the budgeting discussion now, but I think that personally, it's important to work with town to do that. And also, we've had the opportunity to have meetings with the Peak to Peak Chamber of Commerce and, you know, I would hope that we could, you know, have links and also, you know, the business directory and all those things that Kate, you listed in here, but I think that, you know, in my opinion, working with town is great, the cost saving is great, but I'd like to see, like, this is kind of the, you know, the big thing with this, this generation, right? Or everything now, everybody goes to the web to look for something. And I think that when you go to the web and you see the DDA and it's either outdated or incomplete or not as functional as it could be, this is an easy thing to do that would really help. So to me, you know, I would say this could almost be an action item and another quick thing that we could move through, but would love to go around and hear from everyone else.
Yes. With the information that Peter's leaving, he's been the person who's been keeping what limited presence we have going. Does that increase the urgency of this? I'm just trying to understand if maybe Amber's comment of like pushing this along is more important to her, or does Peter's exit not create an increased sense of urgency?
This website, the structure of what could happen for this landing page for you is kind of built into what they do. It's kind of something we do in other communities. This contract was signed this week, basically. So we have just started the process of implementing this website. I built one last year using the same platform for my previous employer, and it took almost 9 months. And part of that was because I transferred here, but it's going to take probably, like, I would imagine we really come online maybe in July, maybe June if we can get there. But it really just depends on their timeline and how much work they have in the pipeline. So I think if you wanted to take a little bit of time and think about it, you could next month. I can show you some more examples of like what we're thinking about. And it's a pretty robust platform. It's completely modern and responsive into the way that user experiences work on these websites. It's also fully integrated with our Unicode piece that has all the code in it, which is helpful from a research perspective. And it has other modules that can be used too. So there's like other engagement modules, and there's like a module for projects, like for projects basically, and things like that. So it has a lot of upgrade potential in the future. So if the question is like, do you guys want to like have some discussion here and then bring something back? I think we have time for that because we can build it in. If you guys wanted, I think it really just depends on how you guys want to do it.
Thank you for the additional information and the clarification, John.
To me, this is something that would represent, well, first of all, any incremental improvement of what our website looks like right now isn't what we need to do. I think pushing it further down the road and thinking about it longer only makes it take longer. And the opportunity to dovetail in and be aligned with the town and their website is, to me, a no-brainer. So I would like to see this move to action item tonight.
Scott, Daniel.
Scott, I feel that collaboration and unity would be important, and cohesiveness between town and NDDA would make sense and keep us running together a little bit more effectively also. Thank you.
Yeah. Everett?
I agree. I think working with the town is ideal. It definitely shows that we're cohesive with them. So I agree with Scott. I think that we should kind of dovetail on them and move forward, try to get it done. Would be nice.
Everett, Tanya, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with moving forward with this, turning it into an action item and not waiting any longer. I mean, our NDDA website is, very outdated. So this will be a huge improvement and it'll be implemented faster. My only question is, once it's done, is it user-friendly in the sense that Kate or somebody who takes charge of the website for NDDA could be updating it, on a daily basis if needed? Like, I really feel like even with the town website, that there's so many things that are outdated, even by like a couple weeks, that it'd be great if it was very user-friendly, where you could just enter and add the new thing you want to add and delete what already happened. Is it going to be easy like that?
Peter let me know that yes, it would be easy for me to maintain. But I guess we'll continue to look into that. Jonathan may, but he had said that it would be easy for me or whoever to be able to maintain and make updates.
That's the
That's
best
great,
part
yeah.
about the system, is it's like, you don't have to have a degree in web design to do it. It's basically, I don't know if you're familiar with WordPress, any of you, but it's a very simple system with a backend that's easy to understand. And then what will happen is there will be a webmaster type person at the top end. So something gets messed up, or we just need a little bit extra attention on something or coding, then that person can take that part. But the intention here would be the DDA would have their own thing, that you can do your own thing, and then like all the departments would have a similar setup, so.
I'd like to make a motion to move this to an action item.
Second,
Scott Papich,
yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Andrew Dewar,
Yes.
Edward Nelson,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Right. Motion to move to action approved.
For discussion,
Uh,
I actually have a question. John, on their proposal that they've got here, and they've got two different designs. One's called a premium, the other's called the ultimate. Both sound really good. What's been proposed is the ultimate. It's about $1,000 more. It's not a huge increase. Is there really much difference? When I look at these images on pages, I'm looking at their images like around pages 3 through 5 of their proposal. They look really similar. Is there a reason for us to go with ultimate over premium?
Yeah, there's a couple, and then this is a decision for, the stuff that we work on in the board. We can talk to the board about this again too. But there are, essentially what it does is it gives you access to more designs, and then more features, like how the email works and the newsletters and things like that. Is it a huge difference? Probably not likely, but one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that it's we're tweaking brand this to the most extent possible into the Nederland kind of thing. And I think some of the more responsive designs are into the ultimate package. We're also going to get a discount because of our other uses of that software. They have a community code thing as part of the library that we use. And what that does is all of our code of ordinances are on there and hosted on there. So there is a incremental price reduction, I guess, for all the services you use. And so I think that was the general thinking behind it, is that, like you said, it's not a huge difference, but it could be something that we discuss if that's something you guys would like to talk about. We did already, I guess, to be fair, we did sign the contract, so we get the approval from the board on it. Okay. But it could change next year too.
All right. But what you're telling us is, yes, there is a difference, and it's a little bit more responsive, and it's a little bit more flexible.
Right.
Okay. We can talk about it.
Well, no, I mean, you brought up a good, there's the optional enhancements. I think one of the thoughts at times that we've talked about on the board is, commercial real estate directory, or, link, all these directories. Is that something that we would need to budget for right now, or can we, in an upcoming work session, kind of talk about?
Like publicly available, or like behind a paywall, or behind like some kind of login, or?
Yeah, I'm looking at like page 40 here, the thing where it says optional items, cost per year, business directory, the projects directory, properties directory, parks directory.
Those are things we could definitely add. The other thing that they have that I would like to do is they have a different meeting management software that I think might be an upgrade for us. So that's something that I've been thinking about too. And also some packet tools that make it easier to create packets and things like that. Those enhancements can be really great. I would suggest, and that's probably what they would tell us, is get the website working and then worry about the other stuff. No, cut.
So the optional stuff, we don't have to decide on that. We can make a decision when we,
No, and exactly what you said is true.
so I would move that we move forward with this proposal. And the price on it was, the website was $4,700 to change.
Motion to rebuild the website in conjunction with the town of Nederland.
I move that we rebuild the website in conjunction with the town of Nederland with this platform.
Second.
Just really quickly on the motion, just so I'm clear, and the cost share piece of that, right, like between the two, do we need to define it now, or is the direction would be to come back to the DDA with a suggestion there, or?
You know, that's a great question, John. I don't have an answer. I think we'd love to hear what, you know, town is looking for on the cost share.
What if we just say that you have an interest, and then I can figure that out, because obviously, you know, there's a lot of town side of this too, so it should be a fair partnership, so.
Yeah.
I could bring that at your next meeting. Yeah, okay, yeah.
The motion still stand?
Second.
Scott Papich,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Andrew Dewar,
Yes.
Everett Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Corvallon.
Yes.
Thank you all. And I think it's good that we'll come back with more on the costs and some of these other questions that have come up. And I appreciate you moving it quickly through and the support in that decision. Thank you all. All right, next is the bylaws review. Now, last Wednesday, I sent you out the documents and highlighted them so that you could have that before we came to this discussion. It was brought to the board leadership's attention that the draft of the bylaws that is referenced by the DDA as being approved in 2018 was not approved by the Board of Trustees. It has been requested that the DDA review again and bring it back to the Board of Trustees. Attached, you will find the bylaws that were approved 12/11, as well as those approved in 6/18. These documents have been highlighted for the ease of review. The differences in the documents are as follows. The only statements that were removed from the original bylaws are references to hiring an executive director and what happens in the absence of an ED with the town of Nederland as it relates to budget and the submission of the budget. This was likely included because these are the first NDDA bylaws, and this is highlighted in that document. The only additions to the updated document are highlighted in the attached dated 6/11/18. They are conflicts of interest statement, clarification of a secretary role, the role of committees, and competitive bidding. There's also been a request to provide language to these bylaws that includes that the Board of Trustee liaison shall have full voting rights. And the authority is audited, and this speaks to the audit provision of the statute, and we thought it was applicable to put here in the bylaws. And it just says the authority is audited as a component of the town and shall cooperate with the town to timely produce the audit information required by the applicable laws, including the local government budget law of Colorado. And so, like I've referenced, those two documents highlighted are attached. And so my questions for the board tonight is, do you reaffirm your commitment to these bylaws, including the new language? And does the board support the additional proposed language to be included in the 6/18 version of the bylaws? And does the NDDA board support sending the bylaws to the Board of Trustees? And you have some potential motions listed below as well. Happy to field any questions. I've spoken individually with most of you about this, so is there anything further?
And that's a good question about the additional language.
Mhm.
The other advisory boards to the town all have liaisons from the Board of Trustees. How do they have that set up for voting rights?
So John can speak to this more, but I met with the mayor today and we've all been discussing this language because it was a question that was raised because different boards do different things. John can speak to that in a second. This language, the Board of Trustees may not choose to add in at this time. Based on my conversations, it sounded like that they're working on their plan. And so I don't know if this fits into that or not, but at least we're saying, hey, this is what our attorney sees as the Board of Trustees liaison's right. And so should the town of Nederland decide to exercise that right, I guess, is really what the Board of Trustees needs to figure out. So thank you for reading that out, because I was going to note that that could be something that they might not want to add right now, but we have the place to do it. We have the information, so they can make the decision as they decide for all of their advisory boards. And John, do you want to?
You guys are unique in the boards. So in theory, we have like 4 kinds of boards. You have committees, which are essentially working groups that tackle certain issues. You have advisory boards, which is like SAB and ProSAB, and they don't have statutory authority to do things, so they make recommendations to the board based on the strategic goals of the town. And then you have quasi judicial bodies, and that is Planning Commission and the Board of Variance Adjustment. And they make adjudications of property rights, essentially, that's what they do. And then they also look at like land use code and our ordinances. So each of these things are a little bit different. You are a slightly different thing as well. You are an entity that was created by a vote. And so you exist in kind of this quasi-governmental role, which is the term in government. But essentially what it is we're linked together. There's statutory responsibilities both for the DDA and the town. But because you are a separate body, you're making decisions that have touch points with the board. So the major touch points are the budget needs to be approved by the board. This audit needs to happen, and then the Board of Trustees approves both the bylaws and the appointments to the board. And so those are kind of like, in theory, how these checks and balances are created between the town and the DDA, just so you have everybody working together. So each of these bodies, since they have different kind of roles, has different rules. So on the advisory boards, they don't have the same kind of voting process that like Planning Commission and the Variance Board have, because they're not making judicial decisions, they're making legislative decisions and recommendations. There's not like any kind of, you're not saying somebody's rights are to do X. Planning, so in those cases, sometimes like it's more of a direction, like sometimes you'll hear the board talk about a nod of 4, and that's just saying we have general consensus to pursue this path, because those decisions would ultimately come to the board. Those decisions, you know, as a kind of a general rule, a lot of the board members, they may choose to participate in that or not. On Planning Commission, it's a little bit different. So the advisor to the Planning Commission, or the board appointee to Planning Commission, those cases will come to the Board of Trustees. So that person is not allowed to participate in those conversations. So they're not present when there is a quasi judicial decision made. And that's something like a lot line adjustment, or perhaps a rezoning or something like that. So that is a very clear line that we don't cross. In your case, I think that what the intention of having a Board of Trustees member here is to keep that connection between the two. And so the argument for why that person should vote is because that's the board's participation in this board. And these decisions likely won't come to the Board of Trustees unless it's specifically related to that budget issue. And that again is a legislative decision essentially. So I think that you guys have to do what feels comfortable to your lawyer. And I think in these conversations, that's one of the things that I think the board wants to talk about as well, is how that works, because I think that's one of the most important links between the two bodies. So that's kind of my nerdy government 101, if you have any questions about it.
So the Planning Commission is the only other advisory board that's even similar to the DDA?
Is kind of, but they're a little bit different as well, because they're really, what basically happens is a legislative decision says this is a rule, and then a quasi judicial decision says this is how we apply that rule. So there's kind of a separation. Quasi judicial decisions rely on specific criteria. So you can't say, You can't paint that thing blue because they don't like it. You have to have that criteria set in place. And that's how things are. Because if somebody asks you something and it's allowed, you need to allow them to do it. So that's kind of what happens there. For you guys, you're gonna make decisions that kind of touch this whole world. Like, for instance, were we to do a project, like an infrastructure project, that may have to go through another town process. But for the decisions you're really making, you're saying this project is the plan of development. That's the other thing I think has board touch, right?
Yes,
So the plan of development, which you have to generate by state statute, also goes to the board of trustees. But that's kind of how that's supposed to work. It's like, once that happens and that plan of development exists, and the board has that person on the board to make sure that their interests in that are represented as well. So it's kind of like, I think, the theory behind having a board member voting.
The Board of Variance has a liaison.
Correct. I think
Voting,
they haven't met, and I apologize that I don't know the answer to that.
so we don't know if they voted or not.
They would not vote if they, yeah.
I have a question. Where in the bylaws does it talk about the voting? I'm in specific. I mean, I know the
it's,
statute in the state allows the liaison to vote.
so
where is
right,
it bylaws?
so right now, it's not in the bylaws. That,
Oh, why are
right,
we?
is not. Because I'm saying that we would suggest adding that language
To explicitly.
to explicitly say, what we had found out. So this codifies it. So in that paragraph about the Board of Liaison, the Board of Trustees liaison, we would add a sentence that just says that the Board of Trustees liaison has full voting rights. So that issue is clarified and codified. That is the intention of that. Yeah.
People, so they don't go
Yeah.
over the whole thing again. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any questions about this. I mean, I can understand there's, the talk of, if the liaison, gives the vote once and then vote again, what that can be, I mean, is that worth talking through? Is, like, if Tanya is the swing vote on something here, and then for better or worse, and then that goes to the BOT and she gets to vote again. I mean, is that, I'm not against this either. I don't want to sound like I am. I just wanted to discuss, like, what are the implications on that?
In a quasi judicial decision, it comes down to like what's called ex parte communication, because it means one board member has access to information that other board members don't. And a board makes a decision as a board. It doesn't make decisions like one person at a time or like two people over here, things like that. And so it's really important to make sure that all those processes happen correctly. But in a legislative decision, it's a little bit different. There's some flexibility there, because what basically happens is you're saying these are what the rules should be, or this is what should be, not, we've already said this rule exists and now, we're adjudicating. So I think that what you'll see if you look at different organizations is there's likely different, it just depends on the culture and like how everybody works. I think it's a good conversation to have, and I think the Board of Trustees is gonna have the same conversation about how it would work, but I think you see from your attorney that from a legal perspective, it's okay for her to vote, or for whoever this person is to vote. And it really comes down to, I think, really, I guess sanitation is a bad word, but it's a lot of making sure that you build process to make sure people understand that certain decisions may have implications, and you all, have some understanding of that like sometimes there might be a thing that you shouldn't vote on. And I think that that's something that is always a good board training thing, to just have these contemplations discussed and think about when that would be appropriate and not.
Tanya, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only times a vote goes twice to the BOT would be if we have a supplemental budget, the budget, or a nomination for a board appointment. Not appointment.
That's
a board
generally
vacancy.
correct. That's generally correct.
And then I wanted to ask John, are there any examples that would be quasi judicial of typical NDDA discussions? And also,
No.
am I missing something in the sense of what other things come back to the board? It's usually supplemental budget, the original budget, which I'll have to tell you, the BOT didn't like the budget, and I fought a lot for the NDDA on that one. And the appointments, which ultimately, you know, is the BOT who decides anyway. So are there any other times where something would have to go to the BOT?
I can't picture what that would be. It depends on, maybe it could possibly be there's a project that has implications that it needs to go through some town process. And that might be an instance where that would happen, but that is kind of getting into like very hypothetical situation. But I think in the normal course of business, I don't think you're gonna see something that would be inappropriate. And I think you've been on boards long enough that you would know if it's something that you should recuse yourself from. And I guess in the future, there might be other
Yeah.
people who that same.
If I mean, for me personally, if there was a conflict of interest, it would be recused from here as well. And I don't see why I wouldn't advocate at the BOT for something the board, the NDDA had voted on. Or why I wouldn't advocate for why we needed the supplemental budget if it was coming to the BOT and the NDDA voted to have it. And so I guess Andrew's, example, if I were the swing vote, and then I was also trying to convince, and I'll tell you, I don't have very good convincing skills. I have yet to convince anyone of anything. That I guess I could wield my influence heavily on something that the NDDA ultimately voted in favor of. But I think ultimately you want to have the advocate for the BOT able to vote. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot of incentive to just sit there and be a basically alternate is what it would be like. So that's where I'll leave it. And then I wanted to also go on a different topic about the bids, the competitive bidding. Have we in the past approved things higher than 2,500 without it going to competitive bid? I'm just curious if you violated that.
No, so, and you'll also see in there that we use the sole source logic sometimes. So we follow town's bidding process. And that's really essentially what this says. And the reason this is in the document is because DDAs by the statute don't actually have to do that. So that's, I believe, why this was added, because I thought that was really interesting when I was working with the statute. So I do believe that that's why it's put in the bylaws, because again, the things in the bylaws should be responses to the statute. And the statute says that DDAs don't have to follow that process, but we're saying, hey, we are gonna follow this process. Is that
but
helpful?
a lot of times we just say, like, for instance, with the performance space, let's just use JVA to do this because they know us. And, you know, like, why are we going to waste our time doing
that sole source logic? That's sole source logic. And we have JVA as well as like a shared vendor. And so that is, again, it gets to that sole source logic that we can always make the case in situations where we don't go out to bid as to why. And that's the biggest one that we do. Go ahead.
So like this would make it so anytime we just want to use JVA, we still have to do an RFP. And it would slow down a lot of the processes of things. So I'm not necessarily in favor of adding that myself.
It's already in there. I understand what you're saying.
Well, we don't do it though. We don't do an RFP every time we want to ask JVA's advice.
No, because we use a sole source methodology, which is included in the bylaws. We do use an RFP to competitive bid process for everything else that we do, like wayfinding, like.
Oh, so they're exempted. Their JVA is not considered outsourcing. They're just part of the team. Is that, I don't understand the sole source stuff.
Tanya, can we let Jonathan respond?
One thing, so what the town does for JVA, we have basically what amounts to an on-call contract for engineering services that are like incidental to the operation of the town. And that's just a services agreement, like an annual services agreement. And so some smaller work, like where, like for instance, say we had a sewer main break and we had to do some engineering for that, that would be used for that. And then we have larger contracts that are, for instance, like Big Springs egress, where that would go out to an RFP process, even though JDA won that bid. And then our finance policy has two things. It has a local, we call it like a escalator to weight local bids, and then also has a sole source bid. So like if you can't find other contracts, which up here is oftentimes the case, there's not people that oftentimes will serve Nederland, then you can go ahead and go through another process. And what we usually do is a purchase order process where we contact at least 3 companies and like try to get a competitive cost. But that's like in our, it's delineated in our finance policy. But what I was gonna say is, I would really like to look at the finance policy with the town, and that's something I need to bring up to the board, and we haven't discussed that yet. But I think that it would be a good exercise, and if that's something you want to follow, that could be a collaborative effort to make sure it's responsive to your needs.
Yes, and I think that was part of our intention with the MOU even that we're gonna discuss later is that would be in there, those types of things for how we move these things forward. And it's always good, so just in the world of government, restrictive policy and follow that guide. And so when we're looking at doing things and like doing wayfinding, we go to the town of Nederland and we adhere to that policy because of our relationships and that, because that's just good government and good policy. And so I do believe that that's why this was included when they last updated this, just to make sure that future boards did that and didn't just go through and did not use this policy, where there is cases for when that should happen with DDAs, but the way that this DDA is run, it isn't the most appropriate stance.
I said, maybe a question that circles back to some of the conversation earlier. Does the decision to include the BOT liaison role impact the number of members of the board? Is that something we can kind of talk through that a little bit earlier? And there was a conversation about how every year we potentially talk about adding people. Is there any impact with this decision on that prior conversation around the number of people on the board? And
No, because, you know, we just need to make sure that there's the appropriate numbers voting, but I think it doesn't really affect here or there in that way. And I mean, do you agree with that?
I do think there's some value of maybe bringing that conversation forward now, so you don't have to update the bylaws twice.
Yeah.
But that would be the only thing I'd say. And then the other thing you think about when you think about board size is you want to think about the decision making, because you always want obviously an odd number, and usually it's like 5-7.
And you all are at 9, and that's typically why we end up where we end up, because there just hasn't been the appetite to try to go to 11, because like this is the last spring we got more application, or last summer we got more applications than usual, and then this, but before that, that was not our experience. So there was that concern, and maybe as you all keep being awesome and people keep wanting to join, you know, maybe that does change that conversation a little bit. But that's always kind of where that conversation has stopped before.
thank you. I was just trying to make sure that we didn't miss an opportunity to clear something up sooner than later.
Tonight, just for my own getting back to the competitive bids thing, I'm remembering like the flagging, you know, for example, if we aren't able to get more than even one bid, that doesn't preclude us from going, okay.
No, because we just document that we contacted people. That's really the key is like he was saying that, you know, like you can't get it, well, then you just make some calls and you at least document that you made outreach to people you reasonably thought could come here. You know, you're not just gonna call people you know or say that, but like that you made the reasonable effort, and the flagging is a great example of that. That was not an easy thing, but we, you know, tried to make some different outreach and get some different quotes, and there was one person that aligned with us.
What I would typically do in our policy, because I have no discretion about what happens for all of staff, is I would have my staff we determine, and what it says is like specifically for a non-complex project.
Mhm.
You don't necessarily have to go out to bid unless it's at a certain price.
Mhm.
But then also on the sole source thing and the other issues, I have some discretion there, but it has to go through me. And what we would do is we would write an aim about the process we undertook to get to that point. So if you were to do that, you could write an aim and be like, I contact, or,
Mhm.
you know, this, it's not like flagging. That's
Yeah.
not something that requires something too complicated. We contacted these companies, this is what is available.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we decided to go with this process.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really easy way to document.
Thank you. And that's a lot of what we've done for beautification is that process. That's why we've, how we move forward with that each year, just for some more background.
So I feel like is there any more need to talk through the liaison? I feel like we've addressed that, voting rights liaison. Talk through the competitive bidding. I don't know if we need to spend time talking about the secretary role or committee's role, if anyone's got anything else on the differences in the document. Or language of adding that we're audited as a component of relationship with town. And, cooperating with town to, as this says, timely produce the audit information required by applicable laws. There any other need for discussion on these?
So the attorney recommended that both of these additional language points be added, is that correct?
He drafted the language based on our request. So it's up to you all to include them, but I'm proposing those based on conversations and just like I said, our bylaws should tie into the statute like that, and that's where I feel that audit statement and our attorney feel that audit statement is appropriate, because like John said, those are our touch points. So
That makes sense.
that one's kind of, and then the board of trustees, that was because that has been a conversation. And like I said before, that's for the board of trustees to hash out, so they may decide to not include that in here. But we're just coming based on that, we do know that it is a right that they could choose to have, is I guess the best way to put it. And so then at least they know that we're willing to put that into the bylaws to codify that, so that nobody in the future needs to ask that question. And then the audit, again, that's just really to make sure that all those things that tie us in the statute or in our bylaws and talk about how we work together. Did that answer your question?
Sort of. The second bullet point makes sense. The first bullet point on the board of trustees liaison, it sounds like we're including that because there's been confusion.
Mhm.
So, but the board of trustees may say that doesn't stay in the bylaws. They'll have that.
They can have that choice.
Well, I think it's something to happen process wise. I'd like to bring this to the board in the near future.
Mhm.
But we want to have, this conversation needs to originate here.
Mhm.
So my next opportunity would be the 18th, but I could also bring it on the 1st potentially, or at a later meeting. And I think what I'd like to do is make sure that you guys have a good where you want the document to be, and then the board can have this conversation as well. And just, there's been the thing with bylaws, I think that's important, and Kate has done a really good job making this distinction, is that you want to make sure you want to make sure the intent is clear what the bylaws are for, and there's no ambiguity in like operating things.
Mhm.
But it doesn't necessarily have to say everything that's going to happen all the time, and there's other ways that we can achieve those goals. So what I'd like to do is get this to where you guys feel like, okay, this puts us in our statutory place, and maintains your control, all those things. And then we take it to the board and we say, hey, because there's other things too, I think that staff would like to talk about how projects that happen on town-owned right away, how they happen and what the process is for those, like who's running those projects, how we go through permitting, what if another board is required, like those things. Those would be really helpful for my team, just so that we can make sure that we're expediting things and everybody knows what they're doing, but that doesn't necessarily have to be 100% spelled out. But what I would do is if you guys approve it, or like this kind of version of it, I would then work to bring that to the board, and my deadline for the next meeting it was today, essentially, but I can still get it in there if we want to do that. I can also bring it on the first though, or whenever you guys are ready. And then once they approve it, then I think the next step, we still need to have this work session and then talk about the plan and development. The comprehensive plan was adopted on the last board meeting, so we're kind of in this space where it's a good time to be thinking about finalizing that document too, and that would be kind of the next piece.
So I already am working on an aim for the board place, so I'm very happy to prioritize getting this to you by tomorrow, Friday, if the board moves that way, so that we can start that conversation. Because that's really the intent is, to start it and get that feedback so that it can inform moving forward. And the next item that we're going to talk about the memorandum of understanding.
Guess I've just another kind of timing question here. So this is currently in our packet as a discussion item.
Mhm.
Is it important for this for the DDA to push this prior to that work session? Or is this part of the work session talking through some of this? Is it better if there's a decision made tonight to facilitate a work session being more functional? Or is this something that effectively goes to that work session and can be part of that conversation?
I think it would turbocharge your work in the work session mostly, because if we get this kind of baseline piece done, then we can focus the work session on this process work and then like the plan and development, which I think would be helpful. You may see though, I think what the board is likely to do, and I think trustee Corvalon, I think your gut feeling here is important. So what I was thinking is the board's probably going to talk about it. They're probably going to have things that they want to discuss in this. So that may need to come back to the DDA anyway. And like, I think that's what they would want. I don't think they would just like say, this is the way it's gonna be. I think they'd want that to come back and kind of like make sure we're all kind of in consensus, because that's really what we're trying to achieve is consensus around this work. And so that probably would need to come to your next meeting anyway, and then that would be ready for approval, but they meet much more frequently than you do. So I think that's how I kind of envision the process, but
And that's kind of how I had spoken with all of you, that, like John says, this just supercharges that, so that you all are going into this meeting, that John and I are running around and, making sure and talking to people and getting some input to give you some more meat and potatoes to work with. And so that's why we're starting the bylaws conversation. That's why we have the next item tonight, so that we can keep moving, so that we can get to this work session where we start talking about the plan and development, and we get into that, which everybody really, that's where I've heard a lot of feedback that people really want to spend the time. So when I've been talking about it to people, the way I think about it is that we have this conversation going, and that this was the most important thing to keep moving, because we want to have bylaws that everybody agrees to, now that we all know that there's an issue. But then, when we go to that work session, we're spending our time looking at, part of the time at the memorandum of understanding, which is where we'll talk about what happens in a project on the right of way, like where those things typically, this is what our attorney's guidance was, that's typically where this would be worked out. And it's a great timing, because we have this new work plan, we have an aggressive 18-month strategy. That's where he thought that this could be helpful to all of us to come together from the start, so that then when we start lifting this work, we're not getting into any questions or being circular, that we've already decided where we want to be. So I see that work session as that memorandum of understanding, making sure we're all together on that, and then time in the work plan, hashing out what the priorities really are and where we all really want to be with those 18-month and future things to be thinking about that are laid out in the sub-area plan.
Thank you both, Kate and John, for the additional context and details.
So I'm hearing that this would help. Getting through this and moving it to an action item would help impact the work session in a positive way. I've been just trying to look at the language related to the audit specifically and where it was added. Can you read that?
So I haven't added it to the document yet because I just wanted you to see what was truly approved. So it's just called out into there so that you can make those decisions this evening separate.
Understood. Oh,
Do you want to take this thing in pieces or you want
um, I mean, I don't really see a ton of huge, substantive, I mean, there's some important changes, but I don't know if we necessarily need to break it into pieces. What do you?
I think we should move forward. If it's something that has to happen, we should probably move forward. I don't see any reason to not adopt the language that was included in the 618 version. There's two pieces of additional language that are being proposed. I guess my curiosity is, what I'm sensing is everybody's got a question around the voting rights of the liaison. There's no other advisory board, and I know that they're all different, have different purposes. They all have a liaison, but liaisons don't vote on any of them. This is the only one that has had that. Is that correct?
No,
Okay.
the advisory boards this is not an advisory
Yeah.
board. That's the really clear distinction. So the advisory boards, they don't make the same kinds of decisions that you make. So it's like
That I understand.
it is but there is a practice here that needs to be discussed and how that works. But I think what the Board of Trustees the conversation is going to be, is that they're going to want to be represented on this body. I think that's really what it is. And so that representation matters. But I think you're right. Like that's definitely the conversation point. It's like how that happens. But I think that's where this gets a little bit different, is because you're in this kind of quasi-governmental space, which is, it gives you some flexibility to have that conversation.
You know, the thing that's weird to me is that even though it's not on a lot of issues, there are issues in which that liaison votes twice and is the only person in town who votes twice on those few issues.
That's not true, Scott. The planning commission votes. They vote and the planning commission brings it to the BOT, just like we bring it to the BOT. And the BOT has the final say. And that member of the planning commission votes on both boards. The only time they would not participate if it was quasi-judicial, which is not all the time. Okay? And also the ProSab and Sustainability Board, they all vote. And then those people come to the BOT with their recommendations of what they voted on. And then the BOT votes if they want to implement it. It's no different than the BOT ultimately having the last say in anything we do that comes back to the BOT. The Planning Commission says what they recommend. We don't always go with what they say, but they get to vote. The BOT member gets to vote twice in that situation. Okay, and the same with ProSab. If they come to us with the idea of something they want to do, they sat and they voted on it, and then they recommended it to us, the BOT, and the BOT has the final say. But that ProSab member gets to advocate for what the ProSab team, the ProSab liaison gets to advocate for what ProSab decided they wanted to bring to the BOT, and they get to vote twice again. So I don't understand what the big deal is. I don't understand. I really don't get it.
I didn't say it was a big deal. I'm just trying to understand it.
Sounds like a big deal because every board, the liaison votes. The BZA is the one that has the most quasi-judicial items, but I have seen it happen just twice in my time in the BOT. The item came to BZA and it was not quasi-judicial somehow, and they voted twice on it. Recently, it was a Pine Cliff variance on a property line, that has major implications. I mean, and another time it was a lot consolidation or whatever. It was like a 3-acre lot that got subdivided to 6 pieces, and they voted twice. So I really wish everyone had the right information. And I've wasted a lot of time with this with Kate. The the bylaws for the NDDA for the state allow it. And this is just falling in line with that.
That's what's my thought.
I have a suggestion that you could take, but this is totally a suggestion. One thing that you could do here, there's gonna be conversation at the board. And we could pass forward in the aim that this is a question that came up here, and you could let them kind of noodle it on their side, which has some benefits. And then that's gonna come, I think in the process that we've kind of anticipated, we'd make sure that everybody was on the same page there. So that could be one solution here.
Well, I wonder if we could take just like a 5-minute recess, because I think I don't want to rush. I know we're almost there and I don't want to rush, and I could definitely use a bathroom break. So can we do a 5-minute recess?
All right, thank you. 5 minutes.
Well, honestly, when I was, like, I was expecting a lot more differences between the versions of the bylaws, so I don't think, that there's major ground shaping differences. The fact that, these weren't technically adopted, but, those questions and getting the clarity on the vote, which I think makes sense. I'd like to make a motion to move this to an action item.
Second.
And Scott Pavich,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus. Yes. Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Andrew Dewar,
Yes.
Everett Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Corcoran.
Yes.
Thank you all.
I'd like to make a motion to send the NDDA bylaws, including new language, to the Board of Trustees.
Second.
Scott Pavich,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Andrew Dewar,
Yes.
Everett Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Corcoran.
Yes.
Thank you all. So I'll work with John to get this in front of the BOT as whatever rate that works for everybody. But I can be ready to put this in for next week if that fits. If not, I'll defer to town on what they need to do for their meetings and how we want to do this.
Let's get it done, so.
Okay.
We're ready.
Okay.
As long, if you run into an issue, just tell me.
No, I'm ready and ready to go. We've already got this all and, we just strategized. So I think it's good to keep moving, which was our intent. And I'll go before the board to get feedback and bring it back here.
Be honest, the fun stuff.
Okay. All right, our last discussion item this evening is a request for direction on a memorandum of understanding between the NDDA and the Board of Trustees. During discussions on the upcoming work session, the following items were raised as points that need to be clarified to move forward to execute our work plan. Town's role in financial management, process for Board of Trustee approvals, town's role in administrative oversight, resolutions and project oversight, check-ins and reporting, and best practices for collaboration. In discussions around the bylaws, the NDDA attorney suggested that working with town staff on a memorandum of understanding would be a good way to move the items forward. Including these items in the bylaws is not appropriate like we've discussed this evening. It is appropriate to be included in a memorandum of understanding and accompanying policies and procedures documents. A memorandum of understanding is an effective tool to be utilized with the updated plan of development and work plan. It can facilitate smoother implementation, and that's the intent and the goal of our collaboration and to set the tone for a collaborative environment. A lot of the items, there are processes that are followed. They're just not written down and codified in a way. And so this will help us get to that place. And the memorandum of understanding will be specific to this work plan and this plan of development and how we work together. And so that's where, Rita and I and John will put together the ways that we do certain things or things that we want it to be. And we'll give all this feedback and then we'll meet with you all depending on, what we need. But then the attorneys would really hash out, what makes sense. And based on their experience, because we know that there's been a lot of communication over the years and it's all got very confusing. And so this way, this clears that up and it puts those questions in the hands of the attorneys that are able to handle this and work this out for us. So that's where I do think that this could be a really effective tool to help us and bring us all together with the work session. And because like I noted that it would be my idea that this would be, part of the meat and potatoes that you were going over with the work session, and that would complement the work plan and how you all would work together to get that done and to to work on those priorities. So that when it came time to pull the trigger on different things, we knew exactly what to do. And it doesn't matter who's where and what, and if there's turnover or something happens, there's a document that holds everybody accountable to what we said we were gonna do to implement this plan.
Yeah. My only thoughts, I mean, I think this is exciting, be great to have a memo of understanding that is able to clarify several of these points. Some of them, I'm wondering, you know, how beneficial an attorney would actually be to that, and if it would be better maybe to have a board member and the ED in addition to the attorney. I'm thinking of things like, you know, project oversight.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
Because, and that's where, like, when we talk about projects on town right of way, you know, we've done it different ways. And so I think that that's where we talk about that with John and we talk about that with everybody. And you're right, that there would be board members involved in all of this. So if you want to clarify that in any motions, feel free to, because that's definitely a portion of things. We would always be checking in on that, but we would hash out like what makes the most sense, what are the processes that we have followed, when is that time applicable and when should it not be, but those would all be kind of what we would send out into the universe to get it vetted.
I mean, I think I see this as like clarifying those, you know, whether it's the processes or procedures, and you know, just the standard operating procedures for how the DDA and the town work together. And getting, you know, making sure there's not assumptions and unmet expectations on either end about, you know, who's doing what, where, when. So I mean, I see this as critical. So go around, see thoughts.
I mean, this is also something that can be updated periodically at any time, right? When a new issue arises and there's a question how we're working together, there's an opportunity to say, we haven't thought about that before, document it. So going forward, we can answer a question once, document it, move forward, yeah.
Yeah. It really is, the intent is to not only have it in that MOU, but also create that organizational guidance, that policies and procedures, and that's way more of a living document than the MOU would be, but we would still be able to update those if we saw it as being something that down the future GDA board would want to have that guidance. You know, that's always a possibility, but the policies and procedures would be something we can update immediately and work through, and you know, that's a way more editable document.
Especially if we get like a big project, you know, we might have a smaller scale project this year trying to fix the first wide or the covered bridge DDA access. That's a pretty small one, but if we get a big one where maybe we're doing First Street or something, I think that this would give us that flexibility, like you said, to say, hey, bigger project, this is how we're managing it. That'll have different implications, I think.
Thank you. I think like as there's, you know, we just went through the process tonight, adding someone new to the board, and I know like the ramp up process of change and making sure that we can like keep momentum. And I think this is a great idea.
I mean, really, I just see Kate as I would want, you know, you to get some support from the board with the DDA attorney in this process. And so.
Absolutely, because I mean, best practices for collaboration is the last thing on there, but it's the most important thing. That's what I think everybody's goal is in coming to this, and that's board members and that. So I would absolutely be checking in with people throughout this process. Because we haven't totally undertaken it yet, but John and I just started talking a little bit about it, but we don't know the full timing because, you know, town has to manage their workload and the staff. But I'm obviously incredibly motivated to put down the things that, like with my institutional history, and get that draft going. You know, like, this is how we've done things in the past. What do you think of this? I already know where those decision points are, so I can kind of get that started going with everybody and different board members that want to participate.
When I read this, so each of these 6 points in the summary section,
Mhm.
these are important points. And it feels to me like what we're saying is, this is how we resolve all these. This is just identifying the things that we need to resolve. Kind of formally.
Mhm.
Okay. My concern is that it will take up a lot of time away from what you're normally doing for BDA. Does that concern you?
No, because I think this would be the most important thing I could do for the DDA, is hammering this stuff out.
Yeah.
Getting us in the position to be able to implement these big projects, I think is incredibly important. And so, my work flows with what your
Right.
business flows. And so this, I think this month the agenda has come together so organically in a wonderful way. And I think I've talked a little bit about that with everybody individually, that you're getting everything that really needs to be on your radar in this meeting. That the things that will help us get to the next level, because we're here. We have that comp plan, and we've been saying, well, when we get this and when we get the plan developed, we're here now. And so this is the next thing. So I am, in this immediate second, no, I'm not concerned, because so much of this is already living in my head and in emails I've already written about certain things. So like, I know how to kind of pull all this together. It's just getting started so that we can start these conversations and we can get it moving.
I think it might actually.
Yeah, it will, yeah.
Codify these processes. It's like, one of the things that can take time is the relationship between you and Rita, because Rita does a lot of the finance work, and that can take, it just, finance work takes a while. But what this would do is just make it really clear about when things are happening and how they're happening and what's expected and that kind of thing, which I think will clear out time for both Rita and you. And I think ultimately what we're really doing is documenting work procedures, just make sure we're all on the same page.
Exactly.
It's kind of like we're writing the guidebook now, and it takes time to write the guidebook.
Yeah.
And once the guidebook's written, everything becomes more,
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely.
Thank
That is truly my feeling. I'm not this is worth the effort, no matter what that is,
No questions or comments from me.
Like, Everett or Tanya, anything you want to add?
No, I support this project. I think we should pursue working it out.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Make a motion to move this to an action item.
Second,
Dot Package,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Andrew Dewar,
Yes.
Everett Nielsen,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you all.
I'd like to make a motion to have the ED work with the board members and the NDDA attorney, as well as town staff, on a memo of understanding between the NDDA and the Board of Trustees.
Second,
Dot Package,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Andrew Dewar,
Yes.
Everett Nielsen,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone for moving through bulk of the agenda tonight. Got the reports. You want to run through that
Yep.
real quick?
So first up is you with your chair report.
Okay, well, I think, I'm really glad to see that there's movement happening on coordination regarding the bylaws and the memo of understanding. So, I mean, I think that's, we'll see a lot of things happening, and I'm glad that we've got a new board member that was appointed tonight and a potential second. So Just really, really pleased with how things are going, and want to thank Kate for pulling together the packet. So that's what I've got tonight.
Thanks, Andrew. The treasurer report. I don't have anything to add other than what's in my report there.
I could probably talk about a million things, sitting here for a minute. I think what I'll tell you is town's been busy. There's been a lot of work happening on many fronts. Town staff started the budget today for 2026, which is fun. We're right in the middle of our audit. We do an audit every year, and we aim to get it done by July 31st. With the multi-fund and accounting, it takes a minute to get all that work done. But we anticipate the auditor will be on site in early March, and then that work will be completed, and then we'll try to get that. It's due to the state on July 31st. So that is when like the really active part of the budget season starts. But I'm having our staff really kind of contemplate what we're doing right now and how we're doing it, and just making sure we're efficient and effective in our work. You may have heard Peter is leaving Netherlands. He and his wife are moving to Ithaca, New York, and they're very excited, and we're very happy for them, but sad to see them leave our family, because they've been doing, they've been a part of this community for a long time. I don't think they're going to be gone forever, but I think it's one of those things that kind of bittersweet. And we're going to try to have, we've been doing town talks, which is kind of like our version of what you're doing with your task force. And I think we're going to dedicate this last one to Peter and make sure people come say goodbye and thank you and all those things. So that should be cool. The comprehensive plan was finally adopted on our last board meeting, and we went through 4 revisions, which I think was ultimately a really good thing. It's a really solid document, and it's got Nederland all over it. It's not really a form-based document. It's got well over 100 recommendations of things we can look at. Some of that work did include the sub-area plan that you guys are very involved in. That's going to go to Planning Commission just to kind of talk about it and think about it at their next meeting. And then I think that is going to form the basis for your plan of development. So that should be a cool conversation for you guys as well. And other things that are happening, the multimodal plan is done. I think we've gotten to the point where Nederland and the people here, and like everyone working on these boards, has set up so many pins that we get to go knock them down. And I think that's one of the exciting things about getting these bylaws done, is we're going to start moving into the execution phase. The Board of Trustees, that's what their next big project will be, is a strategic plan for the town for the next 2 years. We're going to hire a facilitator for that, and there will be some process. And I think one of the things we're really trying to do is really get at this work that's in the comp plan, and try to be really accountable to that, because that's the work that the community has asked for. And that doesn't mean all of it's going to happen. Some of those things are, you should explore, or wouldn't it be cool if kind of things. And that's what we aim to do. So I think with these things that are happening, it positions the board and all the boards to begin that work and to begin talking with our community about what the next really 10 years of Nederland looks like, and how we preserve this small town feel that we heard about tonight, and how we preserve a lot of things about Netherlands. Our staff's been talking a lot about how Netherlands kind of like the Velveteen Rabbit, and it's well loved and it's real, and that's really cool. It doesn't need to be something different than that. And how we do that and how we promote that in the future is really important. I think that you guys have all been kind of thinking about those questions for a long time, and I think the community has as well. And I think this idea of like kind of having, a foot in the past and an eye on the future, and really trying to bring those ideas together and maintain the things that make Netherlands special are really what 2025 is going to be about. So I just want to thank you all for the work you're doing, and for being willing to meet the board on these things and talk to them about how we can improve our collaboration. And that's such a huge thing for us. We have a small community and such a limited number of people who can dedicate time to this, because we're all busy, like everybody has jobs and those things. And I just want you to understand that I realize how hard that is, and Kate, you too. Like, I think there's a lot of work happening here that's really, really good. And I appreciate every one of you. If you have questions for me about anything we're doing right now, there is a lot. I'm happy to answer them now, or if you ever see me out and about, I'm happy to have coffee, or my door to my office, I keep it open all the time. So just feel free to let me know what you need, and I'm happy to try to make it happen for you. So that's all I've got.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Beautification, I don't have anything to add other than what's in the report. And then event support, Tanya, do you want to jump in a little bit about what you've been doing? So Tanya did some research about the 4th of July, the direction to kind of get some information on 4th of July. Tanya, do you want to jump in here?
I do. Yeah. I emailed several drone companies to get into better light, and heard back from 3 of them. One called Bright Lights. It's Colorado based, I think in Denver, and they do have availability for the drones. They have they're about 120 a drone, and they're sold in 100 and 200 packs. The Northern Lights. Oh yeah, let me write that right. Get this right. Northern Lights was sold out. They said everybody rebooked from last year, and they're done. They're full. And oh no, wrong. Bright Lights was sold out. Northern Lights had availability, but they were like $175 a drone, and they're based in Wisconsin. So the 120 drone sounds better. But I mean, they only last about 15 minutes because of the battery life of the drone. That's what the Bright Lights guy explained to me. So you could do a 200 pack and kind of spread them out. So like it's basically 100 at a time, and then maybe overlap as they're changing out. And you get about 25 minutes out of it. And so, and with hiring music, probably you want some kind of music. It would be about $500. So I was thinking it would be like about $2,500 for that. And for the 100 drone that lasts about 15 minutes would be about, $1,250, $12,500. So there's another option, which is a laser show, good old fashioned laser show. And that's something I haven't told Kate yet because I just got the bid in this evening. And that's actually a local person in Ned who does it. It comes with the music included. It lasts about 30 minutes, and it's about $12,500. And during the meeting just now, I sent Kate an email explaining all of this that I was going to ask her to forward it to you guys because I couldn't find the NDDA email for everybody. Just so you have it written down. And so I know this should have been an aim, but I didn't have it all together until recently. And I'm out of town right now. So I just giving you a verbal report. I'm just curious if there's any interest in pursuing any of these. I personally have no, vested interest myself. So I'm just doing this to community. I'm going to be out of town that day. But I think with the summer concert series happening that day, and then to kind of culminate it with something cool could be really fun. Personally, I'm leaning towards the laser show, but I don't, because I'm a fireworks person 100% all around. And I didn't get a response back from the firework person that I emailed. Doesn't mean I can't pursue it, but I didn't get a lot of positive feedback towards that in the last meeting. People wanted to stay safe with fire danger and animals and all that and the noise. So, any opinions? I mean, I know you don't have anything in front of you, so it's hard to have one, but like the laser show, does that sound like it'd be cool? I mean,
Do you want
drones.
an item next month on this, or?
Tanya,
Do
did
I
they
want-
give you a deadline for when you had to sign your contract?
I mean, I don't know. I could see the drone guy filling up. I think the local laser guy could probably, I don't know how popular it is. And I guess I should get more like, how urgent is it for us to make a decision, or could it wait till next month? I could see the drone guy filling up because apparently that's the new thing. But I mean, I don't know. We could just take our chances, right? And bring this back next month. And if they're not available, they're not available. I mean, unless people feel really passionate about moving forward, and I could check with them, and then we could just maybe have a special meeting or discuss it over email. I don't know if that's allowed in the bylaws. Is that allowed in the bylaws to make decisions like that?
No, we
Anyway.
follow it.
So that's where I'm at. I don't know if there's any enthusiasm to move forward with anything here, or if there's zero interest or not a majority interest, then I'm going to stop working on it. But if there's a majority of the board that wants me to keep talking to these people and bring it back next month, I can do that.
Tanya, I didn't hear what date is this?
4th of July. This is 4th of July. And the main reason is because of the summer concert series is going to land that day. It's a Friday night. It would be cool to keep people in town instead of leaving after the summer concert series, or actually get them to the summer concert series, because I could see people not even going if they're going to be watching fireworks or something down somewhere else. They're just going to do it all down there. So I mean, you know, I've heard from some business owners, they think it's a good idea. I know, but it's a lot of money. Minimum, we're spending $1,500.
Let me just interrupt you, Tanya. You're meaning it's basically the difference between 12,500 for a 100 drone, or the
Yeah.
lasers, or $25,000 for the.
No,
200.
12,500 or 20 or double that.
Double
So-
that,
Yeah,
right,
double.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I said 1250, but I was.
Got it. Understood.
And just a reminder,
the
your
main
entire,
The main advantage to 200 would be you could stretch it out to 25 minutes versus the laser show lasts 30 minutes anyway. That's what it lasts. So that was another reason why I was leaning toward, and I think I forgot to say that. So that's the advantage of the 200. Plus it's double you can either throw them all in at the same time and have like a more of a wow, or you could drag them out and have it last longer. Or just go for 100 and just call it done. So, you know, and then there's the option, right? If you went with drone, to select the kind of like style and all that you'd want. And that is something that we don't have to decide right now. We could bring that back to, you know, for people to look at and discuss. But, yeah, that's my report.
and all I wanted to say was that there's $50,000 in the budget for event support this year. I just wanted to bring that item back up to you.
And is that unrelated to the amount of money we would give to the people like Ned Gravel and Farmers
No,
Market?
it's all included in that $50,000 bucket.
Oh, 50 or 15?
50.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought. Okay, well, that's cool. So any thoughts?
Jonathan's got to share
I
something.
actually said a question. The guy with the laser show.
Yeah.
We had a laser show a couple of years ago and it didn't work because we didn't know like all the details. Like you have to have like the projection area and the light. And I just want to I was just suggesting those might be good questions. Like if he's local, he probably has a good idea of like where that would be and what that would look like. But that, it turned into a little bit of an ugly thing because nobody could see the.
Yeah, that's what I asked. I was curious too. And so obviously, before we pull any trigger, I kind of discuss that. Like, how do you see the lasers if you don't have a backdrop?
Yeah, I think you need like the fog, you need the foggers or some stuff in the air. So, certainly I think hearing, and I did also, I think, get some feedback that the fire danger and the fireworks are, well, it's, are always my first choice, but I won't be here in town either for it, but, certainly the drones, I think, as a good second bet, and just, I don't know how the sense is of budget, but certainly as a 4th of July thing, and the chat has pointed out, it's town's 150-year 4th of July thing, along with the summer concert series. So I feel like it'd be, nice to do. I mean, is this something we could pay for and, not get too much grief for? Thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm a fireworks kind of person myself, and I know it's the town's 150th anniversary, as Kathleen pointed out. But what happens if, say, we get one of our freak wind weather events that happens sometimes in the summer? Do we get our money back from the drone guy if the drones can't go up? I don't know much about drones. I'll be very upfront
I-
about that.
I can ask him what kind of weather warranty there is if they do like with fireworks. I think most companies, if there's a fire ban, allow you to do it a different day. So that's a really good question that I can ask him because, yeah, what do you do with 50-mile-hour winds or 20-mile-hour winds? You
And is
know,
there like a limit, like the?
yeah, that's a great
threshold, I
question.
guess?
So I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
I-
Fireworks contracts, there's like 2 deposits that are due. And the first deposit and the second deposit, you can move the show. And then there's like a drop dead date where you have to have the show, but then if there's a fire ban, they'll cancel it still. And then there's an added alternate date. We used to do it on the day after, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, because that's small business Saturday. But it just depends on the fire ban, and that would be, if you went the fire road, you'd want to have the Ned Fire involved in that decision, because they would be the ones making that call. And so they could come out and do their thing too, but with the drones, with the wind, I'm guessing you could add that, some clause like that as well.
At least I don't have experience with the drone show drones, but I do with the, some that shoot video, and they've been able to shoot really good video and really high wind events, my experience. So I think there's probably more leeway with drones, although I'm not a drone professional.
I mean, does anybody want me to keep pushing on the fireworks to get a bid on them and see if they're even available? I've had 2 people recommend the same company, but I left voicemail. I didn't get a response from them, and I was email.
I don't think the fire
Or
department.
should I just leave that? I mean, like,
Yeah.
what's the majority? I'm sorry to bring this up. I know it's a big discussion item, really.
What do we think about agreeing to keep moving forward with this so that you have the ability to
Get some more information.
get some more information, and if there's a need for a special meeting, like if there's a deadline or something, it seems like to me, it seems like a really cool idea. I mean, that's the day in town where there's a parade. If the summer concert series falls, there's not many days where there's like a hat trick of events in Nederland, so it could be a really cool thing. So it feels worth like pushing this forward and making it so that we don't miss out by waiting a month. And then if you find out that there's a deadline and we need to have a special meeting, we could do that, and that keeps us moving forward. That to me seems like.
So, yeah, I like that, and I will keep doing that. But okay, so the laser show, I agree. Like, how does it look just in the sky? I guess I'd like to talk to that guy and ask him about that. Make sure he understands. Make sure he understands that we're outside. I mean, I think he knows we're outside at the reservoir. And then with the drone, I'll ask about the wind. And then I'll go ahead and just keep asking the fireworks and see if it's even still available. I think they're more expensive, probably going to be more like 25,000. What do you think, John, from your past experience?
I paid 28 last year.
Yeah, so we should think that would be like closer to 30. So, and then I guess everyone just kind of look out for an email with that information. But do we even have a majority that would want to do fireworks? So I don't want to.
Can I chime in on that one?
Yeah.
This is Scott. So I am a member of the fire department.
Yeah.
And we hear a lot of feedback from the public about fireworks. And we hear a lot of negative feedback when people even have their own little do-it-yourself fireworks.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, those are more dangerous.
Well, no, they're all dangerous when it's a fire ban. When everything is really dry and windy, they all pose a danger. And that doesn't even bring into consideration and most people with pets are just religiously against fireworks for all those reasons. I would say I can't even imagine justifying that kind of an expense for something that's there and gone that fast and actually is against the wishes of so many people that we hear from.
This is Danielle. I agree with that, Scott. I would be all for the drones. If the lasers are visible, which doesn't sound like they are, troubleshooting that would be getting some cranes with some fog machines, but the drones sound like a good idea, and the idea of this being something we adopt in place of fireworks, even though we grew up with them, it's sentimental, they're amazing. I think it would be smart if we go in the direction of adopting something different, and the drones seem like a very solid venue to get into. I look forward to seeing how that would turn out.
What would people want, the 100 option that lasts 15 minutes, or would they be willing to spring for 200 and either or, you know, do it all at once to make it really big, or kind of spread it out to make it last longer? I mean, like, because I guess at that point I need to tell him what we would want.
Isn't he able to give, give you more information on the detail?
Oh, well, sure. I'm gonna ask about the wind and weather policy, because a big thunderstorm might be. Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
but I'm just curious, like, what people will want. Like, do they just want to spend a little bit less for the first time and see if we like it, or just kind of go all out? Like, I mean,
Can we bring that back next month as we move forward? And
yeah. Well, I'm gonna find out how much competition we have, because, like I told you, some of them are already booked out for the 4th of July, so we may have to decide mid-month or next week, once I get more information.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can wait a whole month, is what I'm getting at, but I am just trying to get the feedback so I can ask the right questions, so that I bring you one last email, and then that's that.
Everett, I see your hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to unraise my hand here. I'll do that really quick.
Oh, oops, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that was just my question about the weather earlier. I was raising my hand. It's been up for a minute. Sorry about that.
All right. So I guess I'll get the answers about the weather cancellation and all that, and find out some examples about how the laser show could work.
Thanks, Tommy.
All right, the next info item is performance-based Barker Meadow Park project update. Do you want to give a high-level quick update?
Yeah, I think the high level quick update is we are, reached out to JBA, and they want kind of some more, feedback on, where we had last left it was, we had this, couple of high level plans from JBA, and they said, we could get this a little further along by bringing on a landscape consultant, landscape design architect. And would you like us to, talk to these 3 different firms that we've worked with and get some feedback? We think that it doesn't cost anything to get feedback of interest and pricing from landscape architects to do that, to help with, at the very least, making the Barker Meadows Park actually just revegetating it, like setting aside the whole concrete pad or any type of stage, but just getting that area where it could be landscaped and in line with a future performance space. So hopefully we can, at the work session with town, talk that through and kind of get consensus over what we want. And if needed, then, be able to talk through how we would allocate funds for the landscape architects. So that's the high level there. Questions on that?
We're gonna take a look at Garfield Field as well and try to, the soil down there is not the greatest for grass growing, and so there may be amendments, but maybe there's opportunity to think about a larger scale project.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. That was the update there.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
Public art, do you have anything to add, Danielle, to what's in the packet?
No additions, thank you.
And Riverwalk, John and I just need to meet. He referenced what we were talking about, kind of finishing that ADA access to the covered bridge, which was part of what the Riverwalk money was allocated to. So last year we got the trails cleaned up and Nikki got to do some improvements that she really needed to do. And so this is a final piece because Nikki kind of came, her and Barb, who was originally on this committee, this was the wish list to have that ADA accessibility in that. But there's a few pieces to that puzzle that we all need to work out with and kind of come up with a plan, since it's CDOT right away too. It's all the things, and it's not exactly a cheap undertaking, but obviously a worthwhile one that we're looking at how we'll work together. Do you have anything to add, John?
No, I think we can probably knock that one out. Once we just gotta get the process going.
And then with regard to wayfinding, I did get the contract back from Geograph and they had a couple of requested changes and our attorney is reviewing those changes right now. We're hoping to get it executed fully by Friday is the goal, on everybody's end. And we're not that far apart, so I'll reach out if there's anything on that. And we are also working on some public information based on the conversation at the last meeting and Danielle's request and kind of wanting to have a one sheet and that in a way that we'll talk to the community. And so Steve Carreau drafted up something and I've been working on editing it. And that's one of the next things I'm going to do is work on finalizing that document now that this packet and the work to get us to this meeting is complete. And then the last thing is website report, and you saw the discussion item, so that's where we are with all of that.
Okay. Yes, as far as any other business before executive session? Kate, do you want to take a minute and just share your, I don't know if you had sent an email or regarding, we're ready to move into executive session if you're gonna.
So we'll need to adjourn this
Right.
meeting
Okay.
and
You have your own, you have what you need to set up the,
probably not.
okay. So are you thinking, Howard,
How do you-
could you adjourn?
That's okay.
Oh, wow.
Motion to adjourn.
Let's do that.
Second.
Thank you all.
So what I'm gonna do, I'll take my laptop off and then I'm
And of course, I didn't print out the language.
so we'll just, once you restart the meeting, I just need a moment to make it work.
Oh, man. Technology in this building. Okay. And this is, I don't typically have problems with the internet. But I really.
Oh, did
have
you
to
get
make-
kicked out?
Yeah, I don't have internet, so I can't get to my language.
They quoted me 50 grand. It's this room. So I gotta figure that out, but it's something has to happen.
Okay.
Well, we could even like, maybe we could like
Ridiculous.
collaborate, 'cause
Yeah, it's ridiculous, because normally I don't have a problem, but now I absolutely am.
well, we just.
Because I need to add, I want to be able to read that language from,
Oh, okay.
oh, is it gonna give me internet for a minute again?
I'm sorry. Good. My daughter, next week. So they graduate, skiing was in, it's 1 year. But it's very good, I'm just like, that's very good. I listen. This. That's how. Fun thing, it has. Yeah. Yeah. He's very fast. And so whatever he comes out, he'll read. He's absolutely. It's kind of fun. Since trios, yeah, he's using. I'm like. Here, so, so that time it was like a great thing. She couldn't get us. I have worked in. So I was back. Prior to state. I would like vibration as a a boundary to a dry cleaner, so I get to taste that back and forth. So, and then I like the sound. I take it back. Yeah, that's a plus. But we should also be able to be something that I know. I think that it is necessary. She's heard in Colorado. It's still those places. She had my sister, but it's like just outside of the life. She had access. Yes. So. Yeah. So. Yeah, actually. He's busy. Yeah. Well, I decided that I have. And just yeah, and everything else. Well, it's not necessary. It's very and such a works by for instance, it's had a social space. So and has to be the person has to start trading. So like it says it's now the ways this business as we get this good real with us so don't pay a monthly salary. Yeah. And then spread out. Yeah, it's also face house. Yeah. It's how you sound and it's joy. That was good. Didn't smell really great. So kind of choice from you can't get special access to how it is. It's the like you know, it's just like that. And it's
Studios.
There's some patience of like the sun comes out, it gets better, better. Yes, and it's like a couple hours to go. I think that it's gonna start getting like too soft and sticky.
I know you don't love it.
Right. It's amazing. And then it's weird snow shows. Yeah. Yeah. I actually enjoys. But there's, and Jackson's has some tons here. So if you have too much. Starts.
This is a small issue as well.
It's so much. That's it. I haven't seen it before. It's just, yeah, or you're longer. Yeah, and like, I stayed in town. Never seen anything. Yeah, I skinned that the first morning there.
This is
Okay. So I skinned that there, ski at Jackson, first day by myself. Okay. So it was a good trip. That was kind of interesting. It's the word. Part of, yeah, some group of friends that I was with. So the goal is like, yeah, nobody dies. Yeah, these guys, we did some track laps, but we go over and swap with them. Yeah. I would like to see it. In some of the videos. Crazy elements. Quite hard. It's, I don't know. I look at it as, yeah. Wow. Looks like fun. Yeah, I mean, the first year of it, it's just, especially with. Serious, I'm just wrong. So, yeah. You ever go back into the years like you know that one? I'll do the checking. Like out of. That's kind of nice. That's not. It's backcountry.
Yeah, that's-
It's not backcountry. Okay. So, there we go.
Yeah, if something's gonna run, sure.
I think after sure, there's a bunch of backcountry stuff. I've heard stories about some since that's different. And since I've read the mountains. I don't know. Yeah, how do you like most of it? Yeah, I think. There's that. Focus numbers. Yeah, it's nice. There's enough big ski around. Yeah. Yeah. I just, I guess. Structures. I went. Password. The reasons. Yeah, I think it's under. Yeah, it's. I was just thinking about the tradition. Thinking about how much time I spend instead of doing trail work versus how much time I actually spend skiing. I'm more. I'll be translator than just a skier. So it's. So it's relative. Well, it's using. Yep, I just size, She was. That's high school. So. It was. Flexible thing to have is like pop person. Yeah. Starting that was. With some use. So the best system conditions. And she was excited. She last year. Challenging storms that were hard to like. It was all the system. Doing so like which actually the condition insurance. It's a very clean kind of. How does we get on top of it? Or she was. Yeah, yeah. And at this time of year, it's they're not even in the sun. Yeah, it's trying to fight against. We but yeah, just that water is. Yeah, it's what it needs to be like. But you have to be able to block stuff from the sun and keep everything. Yes, like we deal with that. There's a bunch of stuff for like the way that everything's set up. There's a bunch of other things. Just some kind of around it, and still just concept. Sure, it's like so it's like if all of our things. There's not a base areas that the sun should like clear. It's just a thing.
Oh, okay.
Options like the sidewalks. Sidewalks, that's something about there's like yeah, like sidewalks, exactly. Yeah, tries. So it's a.
And then my
catch. Yeah, they want to.
because that's
Look at this building, so. But we. So there's, they're like, sometimes it's like, oh, that sounds amazing, we're two in the sun arguing. So two and others. It's nice that they have to count the space. It's like, yeah. That's a good time here. It's nice though. That's what's going on. Hold on,
We're ready? Okay, whatever. You guys
So
ready?
you just need to do your thing public, right? To go into exec and then.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'll do, is this live? Okay, so do you want to just say that you'll read the instructions and then I'll remove? and
Okay.
then Lock the meeting?
All right, we're now back for the executive session, and this executive session is pursuant to CRS section 246402, 4FI, and 4EI for discussion of a personnel matter involving the executive director who has consented to the executive session. We'll now be locking down the meeting to only board members. Thank you.
Just a moment.
And in fact, wait before you, this is not to leave the room.
Hmm. Your version doesn't let me lock it, but I can keep it clean.
Okay.
Give me one more second just
Yep,
to make
nope,
sure
not
I
a
can
problem.
do it.
So of course, when I really need my internet, it is not working right now. So I was gonna pull up some things, but I think I have some workarounds for how to show different things, but I had hoped I could share my screen. And this is never, I normally am able to keep a signal no matter what, but of course, right now it's not gonna work for me. So I appreciate your flexibility.
Just gonna sit here and watch it. Bless you. I'll poke you if,
You think I'm ready to go?
I think you guys can go for it the moment you're good, so I'll poke you if you should stop.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all, and I really appreciate you all taking time to, most of you I've met with individually and talked a little bit about the evolution of things over my last 4 years with you all. In April will be 4 years. When Barb, I thought it was really kind that Barb weighed in, especially since, for 2 years I worked really closely with Barb. And she's always been a big advocate for this to be full-time. And I've understood, why we've continually had the different conversations and we've increased hours and we've kind of kept up with how things are going with the DDA and the projects that we're getting through. And also, like I said tonight, the way that this agenda came together, I think really laid the table for this conversation about the executive director's role, because I always want to give you what I think is best for the organization. And previously, I had said that perhaps, exploring that secretary piece was the best thing for the organization. But over the past 8 months, you all have worked to get us to a point that I didn't know if we could all get to, and it's incredibly exciting. And that's why I've been talking to you, and I would like to be made full-time to start realizing